to see Jerry West talk about Oscar Robertson, he moved up and he was like, hey, look, I know I'm the logo and everything else. He said, but in my era, there was no better basketball player than Oscar Robertson.
Amen.
The greatness of them as players, three players, Chamberlain,
Russell,
Abdul-Jabbar.
40 years covering this league, and I only ever found one man whose opinion about great players made me stop whatever I was doing and listen completely. Not a coach, not a scout, not an analyst with a television contract and a highlight package. Jerry West, the logo. A man who spent his career losing NBA Finals to Bill Russell and then spent the next 4 decades building teams good enough to challenge Jordan and Kobe and LeBron. When West names the players who made him afraid, you are not getting a popularity list. You are getting the testimony of someone who played against the best of one era and evaluated the best of every era that followed. Nobody has ever told you what that list actually means until right now. Stay with me, because what West said about these 5 players tells you more about what greatness actually requires than anything produced in a television studio. A man named Harold worked the Lakers beat for 9 years from a press credential that got him inside the building for shoot-arounds and film sessions, sat next to me at a pregame reception in 2004. West was in the room. Someone asked him who the most difficult opponent he ever faced was. Harold leaned over to me before West answered and said, "Watch his face when he says the name. Whatever he says next is the truth." West said Bill Russell, and his face changed. Russell won 11 championships in 13 seasons. 11. The number is so extreme that it stops being a basketball statistic and starts being something else entirely. West's Lakers pushed him to 7 games multiple times, including the 1969 Finals, which remains one of the most competitive series the league ever produced. Russell averaged over 22 rebounds per game for his career and controlled games not through scoring, but through something the box score never fully captured. He studied opponents before anyone had film departments. He anticipated plays before they developed. He changed shots without fouling in an era when referees gave big men room to operate. What West understood about Russell, and what Russell himself acknowledged in his famous quote about being a player coach who did not care whether people liked it, was that winning was not a byproduct of Russell's game. It was the point. Everything he did on the floor was in service of a single outcome. The Celtics dynasty was not built around Russell's talent. It was built around Russell's obsession with the final score. For West, who lost to that obsession more times than any great player should ever have to lose, the respect was earned through the worst possible classroom. Oscar Robertson produced numbers in 1961 that seemed impossible within the sport's current understanding of what a basketball player was supposed to do. 30 points, 12.5 rebounds, 11.5 assists per game for an entire season. A triple-double average sustained across 82 games before anyone had invented the concept of a triple-double or understood why it should be considered remarkable. West faced Robertson regularly in that era and described him as a player who controlled the pace of every game he entered. At 6'5", with the strength of a forward and the court vision of someone operating 2 possessions ahead of everyone else, Robertson did not impose himself through athleticism. He imposed himself through decision-making so precise that defenses were consistently a half second behind. Robertson eventually won his championship in 1971 alongside Kareem in Milwaukee. West always said players who could dominate with intelligence rather than just physical gifts represented the true essence of what basketball required at its highest level. Magic Johnson arrived in Los Angeles in 1979, and West, by then transitioning from player to executive, Watch from a unique position as the franchise was rebuilt around something the league had never seen. 6'9" running point guard. A player whose size allowed him to see passing angles that guards with normal proportions simply could not access. Game 6 of the 1980 Finals. Kareem injured. 20-year-old rookie starts at center. 42 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists. Lakers win the championship. Magic wins Finals MVP as the youngest recipient in league history. West understood what he was watching. A player who had already demonstrated in his first season on the biggest stage that pressure was not a factor for him. It was simply the context in which he preferred to perform. Magic led the NBA in assists 4 times, 9 finals appearances, 5 championships. The Showtime Lakers were the most entertaining team the league had ever produced, and they ran because Magic could push the pace from the point guard position in a body that could finish at the rim, rebound in traffic, and throw passes that arrived before defenders had identified the intended target. Larry Bird entered the league the same year as Magic in 1979 and transformed Boston from 29 wins the previous season to 61 in his rookie year. That number is the specific one that West pointed to when explaining why Bird belonged on any serious list of the game's greatest players. One player accounting for 32 additional wins is not a statistical improvement. It is a structural transformation of what a franchise is. Bird won 3 consecutive MVP awards from 1984 to 1986. 25 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists per game across that stretch, while leading Boston to 3 finals appearances and 2 championships. In the 1984 finals against West's Lakers, Bird averaged 27 points and 14 rebounds across 7 games, controlling the series with the kind of fearless shot-making that West described as the mark of someone who expected to make everything he attempted in moments that would break other players completely. Bird called his shots before games, hit them in the exact moments he predicted. West never forgot that. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar entered the NBA in 1969, and West had already spent 9 years facing every dominant center the league had produced. Russell, Wilt. He thought he understood the position. Then Kareem arrived with something different from both of them, a combination of footwork, timing, and one specific move that no defender in the history of basketball has ever found a reliable answer to: the skyhook. Released from a point so high above the floor, with a release angle so extreme that the only way to block it was to be taller than Kareem and faster than Kareem simultaneously. No one was both. In his second season with Milwaukee, Kareem averaged 31.7 points and 16 rebounds and led the Bucks to the 1971 championship alongside Oscar Robertson. That same season, he won the league MVP. When he joined the Lakers in the mid-1970s and became the center of the Showtime dynasty alongside Magic, he adapted his role without diminishing his production. In the 1985 Finals, at 38 years old, he averaged over 25 points per game and won Finals MVP against the Boston Celtics. 6 MVP awards total, the most in NBA history. 38,387 career points, a record that stood for nearly 4 decades. West's specific respect for Kareem was rooted in longevity. He did not just stay in the league, he stayed great. He adapted across different eras, different teammates, different roles, and the skyhook remained unguardable from his first NBA season to his last. Wilt Chamberlain became West's teammate in 1968, and West spent 4 years watching from inside the same locker room what defenses experienced from the outside. 50.4 scoring average in the 1961-62 season. 25.7 rebounds per game that same year. 100 points in a single game against the Knicks, a record that has stood without challenge for over 60 years. Led the league in rebounds 11 times. Led the league in assists in 1968, demonstrating that when he chose to redirect his focus from scoring to playmaking, he could lead the league in that category too. The 1972 championship. 69 wins, including a 33-game winning streak that still stands as the longest in NBA history. West described watching defenses collapse around Wilt and knowing every shot he took that season existed because Wilt demanded 2 and 3 defenders. Wilt did not just dominate within the game as it existed. He forced the league to redesign its own rules around him, widened the lane, changed goaltending interpretations, constructed architectural alterations to contain one man. He could not be contained. That was always the point. I have watched this league for 40 years from close enough to understand the difference between players who are celebrated and players who are feared. Celebrity is noise. Fear is information. Jerry West feared these 5 because they all had the same quality that West himself possessed and spent his career trying to find in others. When everything was decided and everyone in the building knew what was coming, they delivered anyway. That is not a highlight. That is a standard. West knew exactly what it looked like. He spent 19 seasons trying to reach it himself.